This is Corey Willis with PPEI, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
I'm Adam Blattenberg from Diesel World.
This is Dan, owner of Dan's Diesel Performance.
I'm Braden Fleece, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. Today's guest we had on a couple years ago. His name's Kyle, and he told us about a Duramax, a daily driver that he built, and how the truck held up, why he chose that platform. Well, he's got a new truck, and we were chatting with him on Instagram, and he's like, hey, you guys got to check out my new build. I'd love to come on the podcast, and I know there's some listeners out there that are going to be, looking at a similar build, and I just want to be able to talk about it. So we had a great time with him before, and today we're going to chat with him again about this particular truck, what the power goals are for it, and maybe some similarities and differences between the other truck he did. Before we get to the podcast, so we want to encourage you guys to check out Revmax Converters. Make sure you follow them on Instagram or Facebook. We had Frank from Revmax on recently, and we did a podcast about their billet 68 RFE valve body. Well, they just released for the 68 RFE a billet overdrive clutch hub, and we're going to have Frank back on the podcast, but this is really important if you have a 6.7 Cummins with a 68 RFE and you're looking to make big power and have it be reliable. This is going to be huge. So we want to let you guys know we're going to chat with him again. We're going to ask him about this, and then also some of the other transmission platforms like the Allison and the new Ford 10-speed. See what they think of them. If there's any weak points, they can just tell, or just their overall impressions of that transmission. Also, we had Mishimoto on the podcast not long ago, and we were talking about transmission coolers and radiators. They've got a special giveaway just for Diesel Podcast listeners. If you go to mishimoto.com/Diesel Podcast, you can enter to win a free transmission cooler and a free radiator. And you just go on that website address, just enter your information, and it's going to run until the middle of March. So you got plenty of time to get entered, and you can win some free truck parts. So I encourage you guys to do that. All right, let's get to the podcast with Kyle and talking about his new Duramax. Kyle, welcome back to the Diesel Podcast. It's been a year or two since we chatted last, but I had a lot of fun talking before about your daily driver, your Duramax, and kind of power it was making, and the times you're getting at the track. And you got a new truck, so we're excited to chat with you today and see what the plans are with this one.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I saw you on Instagram. You got a regular cab, so I just wanted to start at the beginning. How'd you find the truck? Did you have a goal with it from the start, or is it kind of morphed or changed as you've had it, or what are the plans for it?
Yeah, so I had gotten rid of my previous truck that we did a podcast on, which was my 2012, and I sold it, and I really like the new body style trucks, and I originally bought a crew cab 2015 High Country that I owned for about a year or so, and then it kind of piqued my interest to get a regular cab. They just seemed more race truckish, if you will. So I ended up selling my High Country, and then started researching, trying to find single cab Duramaxes in the 2015 and up body style. And
are they tough to find?
Aside from finding, I found one Z71 truck that was already had a lift kit and stuff on it that the guy was asking way too much money for. So I found the one that I currently bought and own out in Georgia. So I flew out there, looked at it, bought it sight unseen, and then drove it 14 and a half hours back to Texas.
Nice. Were there no major surprises or anything once you got there and checked out the truck?
The body was a little rough. There was more dents than obviously you can see in pictures, but other than that, it was, no oil leaks, transmission, shifted fine, head gaskets were good. So as long as, I kind of checked the bare minimum just to make sure that it was going to be okay to drive, 14 hours, and picked it up.
I remember your last truck. It was a really stout daily driver, something you could use every day, but then also take to the track. Is that the plan with this one?
Yeah, so I think this truck, I just ordered a big single turbo kit from HSP. We do a lot of work with those guys here at Right Bros Customs, and we got a big single turbo kit coming from those guys, and got got a fuel pump coming from S&S, and hopefully we should be maxing out the stock injectors pretty easily. And then once I get some more money saved up, we'll be doing injectors in it as well. But we're hoping for around 700 with the stock injectors for a daily driven street truck.
I remember you had a big single in your last truck, right?
Yep, I had I think it was a 472 from BorgWarner, their SXE line.
Okay. Are you sticking around that same size or going a little bit bigger on this one?
We're actually going to be doing a forced inductions 476.
Nice. Going to have plenty of air.
Yeah, plenty of air, hopefully to, looking at, trying to build the truck for the end goal. I'm not going to put a small S400 in there now, and then, in 2 years when I, decide to make more power, pull that turbo out, put another one in. So.
Now, when you bought the truck, was it 100% stock, or did it have some upgrades done to it? Anything with the transmission, anything like that?
This one was 100% bone stock. All the good emissions stuff that comes on these trucks from the factory was all on there, and it was a nice and quiet truck when I drove it, 14 hours, but it was definitely lacking power.
I know with that big Charger you got planned and some fueling upgrades, the stock Ellison is definitely not going to like that. Are you going to build this transmission yourself?
Yeah, so we build all of our transmissions here at Wright Bros Customs in-house, and fortunate enough to have a great boss that showed me, the ins and outs of the Allisons and, the do's and don'ts and the whys and whatnot. So we're going to be pulling that one out, and I'll be rebuilding that one myself, and trying a couple of tricks here and there, see if we can't get it to shift a little bit quicker than the LMLs usually do, even with shift kits and whatnot in them. So
it's going to be definitely a fun project. I saw on Instagram you've got some Denali seats in there too.
Yeah, so I know one other guy that's done I think he put a high country interior into a 2015 high country or work truck, and I kind of talked with him a little bit about the whole process and what all you need and whatnot. And of course, it's not as easy as just swapping seats and throwing a center console in it. And so I, Facebook Marketplace, trying to find everything that I needed. Finally found a dude that had the seat, center console, dash, all the wiring, and the carpet and whatnot, and I picked that up, and a good buddy of mine came up and helped me Friday after work. We stayed till 4 o'clock in the morning, ripping the interior out and then stabbing the new stuff in. So
nice. That's going to be it seems like quite a project, changing everything over. I'm sure there's some tips and some tricks that you learned along the way that definitely help someone else if they're looking to do different interior, different seats, just getting it all to work together. Yeah,
it's certainly not an easy process. There's a lot of little tiny 7mm bolts all over the dash, and lots of little hidden things that you can definitely overlook if you're not very savvy with interior parts. But we got all the dash, seats, center console, carpet, and everything in. We had to use the whole floor harness out of a crew cab truck and kind of modified it to run the power seats and whatnot. So unfortunately, the whole floor harness runs up through the firewall up into your fuse panel, driver's side and passenger side.
Oh, I gotcha. How hard is the electronic side of it getting, like the dash, the radio, that stuff to work?
So the guy that I talked to that had done it previous to me, he had a 2015 truck, and then the donor truck that he got all the interior and harnesses out of was also a 15. So he said it was pretty easy. He just reflashed like the BCM and a couple other of the like radio modules and stuff like that to the same VIN that his truck is, and he didn't have any sort of issues like that. But with my truck, I got an interior out of I think it was a 2017 L5P truck. So I'm running into a couple problems with the dash cluster and the radio kind of trying to communicate with the factory truck, being that it's a work truck and, it's not programmed to run, all this extra stuff. So
I gotcha. You'll definitely have to keep us updated on that and how that all works out when you get the truck done. And that was the next thing I was going to ask you about is, if your timeline to get the power, the suspension, just get everything set up in the truck. When are you looking at taking it out, maybe putting it on the track and having some fun with it?
Hoping to, the turbo kit and the pump should be here tomorrow. I think Ryan at HSP said the turbo kit was going to be around 6 to 8 week wait time, just because we're doing a couple, different things than what would normally come on a single 400 kit, custom color, that sort of stuff. So I'm hoping to have all my transmission parts here and ready to go when I do the turbo kit, so I can do kind of all of it, in one go. And should happen to have the truck probably done around mid-April, I'd say, would probably be a good safe bet on completion date at least.
Well, that's just getting into the race season will have, kind of started by then, but the full swing of things going on in the summer, pretty much all over the country too, is, different places you can take it if, you want to race it or, do some different events or hit some certain tracks up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm starting to look around. Obviously, I used to live in Illinois and moved down here 2 years ago to work for Jesse at Wright Bros Customs, and still trying to figure out all the racetracks and when they have kind of those big diesel days and testing tunes and whatnot around here. But I'm pretty set on bringing the truck back to Illinois once it's making some decent power and stopping by Byron and doing their diesel blackout days at least in October. If the truck's done and good to go by I think it's in June, I'll probably try and make it up for that one at least.
We've had a few guests tell us how fun it is to go to that track, and the diesel events that they have are really fun, and it's always cool to see. We follow them on social media, so we're always seeing what they're doing at the dragway, and it's going to be really cool to see this truck come together, and that's what I really remember from the last episode that we did. And then this one is the both trucks that you've had are really nice, and you gravitate towards them on social media. You see the wheels and the tires and the stance and how clean you keep them, but then also being able to drive it every day, which is what we all want to do. We want the extra power, but we want to be able to drive it around town or take it on a road trip, and that's what always has us excited to either see what you're doing on social media or doing a podcast like this and asking you what your plans are. What kind of power number you think you're going to be at, and say when it's ready to hit the track, what are you shooting for?
I think once we get the trans done, and obviously we're going to be trying out some new tricks with that, and hopefully as long as that works out pretty decent, get the trans pretty lined out. I'm hoping to be making around 700 with the stock injectors in it. With it being two-wheel drive, I think I'm probably going to end up throwing some cheater slicks or some radials or something on the back, help hook it up a little bit. But hopefully 700 horsepower. If I can dip the truck down into the 11s would be ideal. And then once it comes time for injectors, I'm probably going to end up throwing some 200s in it and dialing them way back. And hopefully the truck will make a nice 900 and not pop the motor apart.
For the suspension, I was just thinking that when you're talking about the drag slicks, is what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the suspension?
So I think what we're probably going to end up doing is, for the time being, we're probably just going to I'll end up building a set of traction bars for it, and maybe changing out the shocks to a QA1 or something like that, more of a race setup. But the end goal is probably going to be we're going to take the long bed off, do a short bed swap, and probably end up throwing like a Ford 9-inch Outback with some 4-link and coilovers to really get it to hook up nice.
That's going to be sweet. That's what's so cool about builds like this is seeing, I think there's one picture like right when you got the truck at a fuel station, and it's got the stock tires and wheels on it. And then you posted another one with an aftermarket set of wheels and tires, and then just seeing how it's going to progress is what's so cool. I think it inspires a lot of people with their own builds, whether it's somebody with a Duramax or Power Stroke or Cummins. It's just being able to take, find the truck that you want, and then being able to do it almost in phases, get that nice power level that you're looking for on the street, but then also keeping an eye towards the future with, added fuel, bigger power, suspension, different goals. Maybe it's to enter a different competition or just take it to different tracks or just have fun with it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm looking at for this truck is something that, Monday through Friday I can hop in it, drive it to work, and go out to eat lunch with it, and, on the weekends be able to, if I want to cruise up to Illinois, 900-something miles away, I can hop in it, cruise on up there, and then, go see, all my old buddies that I used to drag race with, go drag race with them all Saturday, and then head back down Sunday.
Yep. That's what's so cool about diesel trucks, and the performance side of it is the utility that you have with being able to do just that versus, having to trailer something everywhere and plan logistically how to do it. It's fun to be able to go to the track, have some fun, drive the vehicle home, go to work on Monday, and do it all over again.
Yeah, it's that's kind of like the big plus side for me is I've had cars that drove fast and stuff like that, and just like you said, the utilityness of a truck, like if we need to take an engine or a transmission over to a machine shop or whatever, we can just throw that stuff in the bed of it, drive it over there. If you've got a 800 horsepower Camaro, it's hard to fit, something in the trunk.
Definitely not fitting an engine or transmission back there.
No.
For any of our listeners out there that are like, I want to check out this truck, or I'm thinking about doing the same thing, where can they find you on Instagram and be able to check out what you're doing in this build as it progresses, the end of this winter into the spring, and then we start taking it out to different tracks?
So I haven't been super big on Instagram lately, but I've been getting back into it with the progression of this truck. But my Instagram handle is Kyle_Slowmax. And then you can also follow some of the builds. My truck will be on there as well on our shops page, which is Right Bros Customs.
Very cool. Yeah, I've been following you, since before we did that last podcast a couple years ago. And when I saw you got a new truck, I'm like, oh, he's going to build something really cool. I got to make sure I definitely pay attention and see what you're doing. So the truck's coming together really nice. And I'm going to be excited to see how it does and how you get everything working, on the electronic side and get that all put together.
Yeah, it's been definitely a difficult process with the electrical components on the truck, but I think once we get it lined up, having the whole Bluetooth big screen radio and stuff in the truck, and heated and cooled seats and steering wheel, on top of a truck that makes 900 horsepower. I think it's going to be, not only plush, but also fast, and might end up doing some sort of vinyl wrap on the outside with some sort of pull wrap on it. So
that's the dream right there. Have the power and the creature comforts.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Kyle, coming back on the podcast. You're reaching out to us and saying, hey, I got this new truck. This is what I'm doing with it. And we always enjoy having you on and seeing what you put together and then how you can use it every day. That's really cool, and I appreciate your time and giving us some information on this build. And I definitely want to sit back down with you in the future and maybe get some like a recap of race season after you take it out this summer and this fall.
For sure, I'll definitely be down for that, and it's always a pleasure to be on the podcast and chat with you.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to mishimoto.com/diesel podcast. Get entered to win a free transmission cooler and radiator. And we also want to encourage you guys to go to revmaxconverters.com and also follow Revmax on social media. If you're going to be needing a transmission upgrade, need to refresh, one that you have, whether it's an Allison, a Ford, a Dodge transmission. We've got some really cool things coming out for the 68 RFE, also the 10-speed Allison, 10-speed Ford, and any of the older transmissions, whether it's a 48 RE, 4R100, 5-speed Allison. They've got plenty of upgrades for really any sort of build, whether it's mild or it's a full-on race truck. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.